L. Ron Hubbard invented this thing called the Alice in Wonderland technique. You know that this is a confusing statement, but if we're in a conversation and I'm speaking in a really confident way, and I said something like, how different would it be if the same thing started looking now like it wouldn't change if nothing else really did? And you could just get completely open. And then the CIA, without even attributing anything to them, copied it almost word for word in an interrogation manual. And I have that PDF too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Chase Hughes just exposed the scariest manipulation trick yet. They used to call it interrogation, but now it's just called content.
They discovered this in the 50s and 60s that if I can confuse your brain acts as though it's somebody that's falling. So if you imagine when you're falling, your limbs are flailing all over the place, and the first solid object that they come into contact with, it's going to like grab around it no matter what, even if it's a thorn bush or something.
Okay.
Right? So anything that's solid in that moment of confusion is going to get grabbed onto. So the brain corollary to this is if a person's confused, the first logical piece of information they hear after being confused will be automatically accepted, or more automatically accepted, without being screened or scrutinized by the brain.
In the world of behavioral manipulation, few tools could be more dangerous or more effective than confusion. Scientology's founder, L. Ron Hubbard, understood this long before social media or surveillance capitalism. He wrote extensively about a method now known as the Alice in Wonderland technique, which involves flooding the subject with contradictory messages, bizarre phrases, and emotional whiplash until their grip on reality begins to slip. In 1961, the CIA declassified the now infamous Kubark counterintelligence interrogation manual, and inside it was almost word-for-word instructions from Hubbard's playbook. The technique was adopted as a psychological softening tool, meant to dismantle the subject's internal logic and replace it with whatever narrative the operator wanted. The goal wasn't to extract the truth, it was to overwrite the mind.
What L. Ron Hubbard does is have people read out of this book of Alice in Wonderland. The verbiage is very confusing. And L. Ron Hubbard openly wrote about this in his work, and I'll give you all of my research on it, and then the CIA, without even attributing anything to him, copied it almost word for word in an interrogation manual. And I have that PDF too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And then the grandfather of hypnotherapy, Milton Erickson, started writing about it.
Chase Hughes explains it like this. Every person runs on invisible behavioral scripts, pre-programmed mental routines that help us make sense of daily life. They tell your brain what's normal, what to expect, what to ignore. But when you interrupt that script through contradiction, chaos, or emotional shock, the brain hits a freeze point. It can't run its usual logic, so it panics. In that moment, it becomes desperate for something stable to grab onto. And whatever comes next, whether it's a belief, a command, or a total lie, feels safe simply because it's solid. The brain latches on automatically. This is where the command is inserted when the person is disoriented and vulnerable. A hypnotist might say something that makes no grammatical sense. At the moment your conscious brain rejects it but your subconscious doesn't, it'll start to obey. And here's the trap. Once your brain accepts that first command under confusion, it becomes easier to follow the next, and the next, until you're no longer evaluating, just absorbing. That same pattern is now everywhere, not in interrogation rooms, but on your feed.
Fractionation is where like I would put you into a trance, and that would bring you almost all the way out to where your eyes are kind of opening again, and then send you back down again, and you go deeper. So in comedy and in conversations, you can do this to people where it's like a super fun thing, then really depressing or scary thing, fun thing, scary thing. You scroll through your social media feed.
Yeah.
It's fractionation as well. But it increases suggestibility.
They call it advice. They call it motivation. But it's built on the same bones as a cult initiation script. Chase doesn't name names, but the blueprint is clear. Today's alpha brand influencers don't sell facts. They sell chaos first, then order. They throw you into a mental spin cycle, then offer a handout for a price. One minute they're promising freedom, the next they're blaming you for being stuck. And right when you're most off balance, they pitch a solution. Their course, their method, their version of reality. It's not just marketing. It's psychological warfare dressed in Instagram filters.
If you think of the way that social media manipulates our brain, it falsifies a tribal agreement, and it makes us say A.
Right.
So we're willing to ignore everything that we see because we're seeing a tribe say that something else is happening.
Okay.
So it'll override our brain. And if there's one thing, like if you just one thing that matters a lot is that our brains are not capable of of overcoming this technology. We don't have a firewall. And technology has outpaced our brain's ability to adapt to it.
Hughes explains that it all comes down to cognitive overload. Your brain can only hold on to so many contradictory ideas before it short circuits. At that breaking point, you stop critically thinking and start following. That's where the real manipulation begins. Confusion, pause, insertion. You've seen the scripts. You know nothing. The system is broken. Only we have the answer. It's the same message across 1,000 hustlers, each wearing the costume of authority. And it works. Not because it makes sense, but because it creates identity. You're not buying a program, you're buying a new version of yourself. One that fits into their tribe. One that rejects the NPCs and joins the elite. The emotional loop is intentional. Fear, then hope, then guilt, then belonging, then fear again. It's not a side effect, it's the point. Studies back this up. A 2022 study in the Journal of Social Influence showed that rapid emotional changes increase vulnerability to persuasive messaging by nearly 48%, especially when delivered by perceived authority figures. That's why these gurus never just sell information. They sell urgency. They sell lifestyle. They sell family. And if you don't join, they frame you as weak. This isn't motivation. This is manufactured identity, designed, packaged, and sold to the most emotionally scrambled version of yourself.
The moment you get to identity, then you're guaranteeing that you can predict future behavior. And this goes really deep. We can get into hypnosis and all that stuff if you want to. And once I get identity agreement, this is the same thing with politics. You see the exact same thing. The identity gets hijacked, and then I can do anything I want because your identity is involved here. It's not you're agreeing with my ideas. You're agreeing because that's who you are.
And the most important part, this didn't start on YouTube or in a podcast or with a guy selling alpha masculinity and sunglasses. Chase Hughes is clear. The psychological tools we're seeing today were forged in war rooms and interrogation chambers. The modern manipulation playbook is rooted in government-funded psychological operations, PSYOPs, where behavior manipulation was first introduced. Here's what he reveals about the Milgram experiment.
You've heard of the Milgram experiment?
No.
Let me walk you through it. Okay. This is 1962 at Yale University. And they do a study. They put an ad in the paper and they say, we're doing a study on learning and psychology. And if you come in and volunteer for the study, we're going to give you like a lunch voucher or something like that. So all these people volunteered. So let's say you're doing the study and you take it and you go up in this hallway, you meet this guy, the guy in the lab coat, and there's another volunteer there and you draw straws. The other guy draws the learner straw and you draw a straw that says teacher on it. And they say, all right, you're going to sit down here and I'll summarize it. But the guy's in the room next to you with the door shut, and you're going to sit down at this machine and you're going to read this quiz, and for every question he gets wrong, you're going to shock his ass. You're going to deliver an electric shock.
The participants were told they were helping with a study on learning and memory. What they didn't know was that the learner in the other room was an actor. And the shocks weren't real, but the participants thought they were.
And every time they get a question wrong, you shock them, but not only that, you're going to grab that little knob and move the voltage up. So if you move the knob all the way to the far right, it says XXX danger severe shock. So you start the experiment. The guy says he's got a heart condition, and you can hear him screaming when you hit this little shock button through the wall. You can hear him go ah. You can hear these little screams, and every time you're moving it up, and sooner or later he says, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to continue. I'm out of here. I have a heart condition. I told you I had a heart condition. I want to leave. I want to stop right now." And all these people would kind of like turn back to the guy in the lab coat, like, what do I do? And the guy in the lab coat, almost every time would say something as simple as, "It's important that you continue," or "The experiment requires that you continue." So they keep going and keep going and keep going. They're up to like 300 volts now.
The voltage kept climbing, even when the learner screamed, even when he begged, even when he went silent. By the end, 100% of participants went up to 250 volts. 67% went all the way to the maximum. labeled XXX, danger, severe shock, just because a man in a lab coat told them to. Another replication of the study in 2010 by Dr. Jerry Berger, published in American Psychologist, showed almost the exact same numbers. Different year, same results, same obedience. This is what Chase keeps warning about. You don't need drugs, you don't need torture, you don't even need to raise your voice. If you combine novelty, confusion, and perceived authority, you could get full compliance. No hypnosis required. Just a clean room, a uniform, and the right script. The scariest part of the Milgram study isn't what people did back then. It's that nothing's changed. And now the lab coat could just look like an influencer with a verified checkmark.
If I can get you to think that most of your tribal members agree to X, then most people, like 90% of people, will say, okay, X is true.
Well, especially with social media, right?
Scroll, swipe, pause, watch again. It feels random, but it's not. According to Chase Hughes, what's happening on your phone is emotional engineering. Every short-form video, every ad, every comment thread is part of an invisible loop designed to pull your mind in every direction at once. And the goal isn't to entertain you, definitely not. It's to fracture your focus, fatigue your logic, and keep you emotionally volatile, because that's when you're easiest to control.
Your brain versus a $1 trillion computer, you're going to lose. I'm going to lose. And I can spot all of the things, and I'm still going to lose.
Social media obviously is having some sort of psychological manipulation on people.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest impact it's having on people, other than the theft of your time?
Tribal confusion. So I get to automatically, I don't have to hack your brain. I don't have to convince you of anything. All I have to do is tell you a whole shitload of people believe this one thing. And all that is, it may not get you to keel over right away, but it gets you to say, wow, it's starting to become a pretty popular idea. I'm going to start to entertain, it might start entertaining that. So technology has outpaced our brain's ability to adapt, period. We cannot adapt. Our brains haven't changed in 200,000 years. If I can trick the mammal part of your brain that doesn't even speak English, so all I have to do is get the human part of your brain to translate what I'm seeing, what you're seeing on the phone, into an image in your mammalian brain, and think that it's brand new, something weird that haven't seen before. Does that sound familiar on social media?
Sure.
Weird, unusual.
Oh, yeah.
Novelty generates focus. Then there's an authority, because you're thinking a lot. This thing has 97,000 likes in the last hour or whatever. Authority. Tribe is there. It's built into the likes.
And then a lot of bots in the comments that agree with it. And
yeah.
Chime in and
can't believe he's doing this. What a narcissist. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He calls it emotional cycling. And once you spot it, you can't unsee it. Rage clip about politics, swipe. A video of someone healing from trauma, swipe. A luxury car and a link to a masterclass, swipe. A breakup story, swipe. The cycle repeats. Each emotion spikes your brain chemistry, then drops it. You're not just watching content, you're being rewired by it. In short, the more emotionally scrambled you are, the more programmable you become. This is the Alice in Wonderland technique, at scale. These platforms don't just confuse you with nonsense language, they do it with algorithmic chaos. You're pushed from fear to hope to loneliness to desire in under 60 seconds, and then you're sold a fix. What looks like entertainment is behavioral warfare, and it's not your attention they're fighting for, it's your identity. Here's what he reveals about the algorithms.
If I've got you for 16 hours with advanced algorithms and technology designed to manipulate you specifically, and in 1972 they could talk someone into murder in 45 minutes. If you just imagine what's possible.
And know that governments are utilizing that. It's not just people's opinions, and it's not just groups of people that are trying to convince other people to think the way they think. It's actual governments that are involved in trying to manipulate narratives.
Yeah. If you're thinking it's a left and a right issue, that's also, you may be a victim.
Most people think influence requires years of training, deep psychological knowledge, or advanced hypnosis. Chase Hughes disagrees. According to him, if you know what to look for, controlling someone's behavior doesn't take skill, it takes selection. The key isn't technique, it's targeting. You don't need to manipulate everyone, just the right kind of person. He says the most influenceable people don't walk around with signs on their heads, but they do wear it on their faces. One detail he talks about often, wrinkle-free under eyes. Not just a cosmetic feature, He links it to emotional suggestibility. People with extremely smooth lower eyelids, according to his findings and feedback from thousands of hypnotists, are significantly more prone to entering trance states and accepting suggestions without resistance. The idea is simple. If someone can be persuaded easily once, they can be persuaded repeatedly. That's why cult recruiters, hostage negotiators, and interrogators all rely on behavioral cues to decide who to engage and how. And the methods are often the same, only the goal is different. To track and codify these behaviors, Hughes developed what he called the Behavioral Table of Elements, a public PDF that outlines over 100 human behaviors ranked by their likelihood of deception, stress, or emotional openness. It's built on over 40 peer-reviewed studies and observational field data. It's a toolkit for behavioral control, not just a chart.
Essentially, it's every behavior that a human being can do, rated from least deceptive to most deceptive. And it's free online. I don't charge money for it or anything. So each one of those is a little human behavior, and they're rated from least deceptive to most deceptive. So this is like the ultimate one-page guide to reading a human being. And this is all of our behavior. So all on here you can see how likely it is to be deceptive, whether or not you're going to see it before, during, or after someone's statement, or the score of deception, the behaviors that are going to confirm your findings, the behaviors that are going to amplify it and give you more information. So everything on the right is the most deceptive or most stress, where there's no behavior for deception. And everything on the left is the least. They're the most comfortable. Everything in like that turquoise is facial expressions. And everything on the very bottom is what happens outside of our bodies, like how we interact with like objects on the table and the stuff that we actually say, like I'm rising vocal pitch, increasing speed, a non-answer statement. So those are all the different ways that we can be deceptive in our speech. So I tried to get all behavior for deception detection on one sheet. So each one of these is backed by a minimum of 4 pieces of research to make it onto this table.
The question isn't if you're being manipulated. That's already happening. The real question now is, how many versions of the script have been tested just on you? Think about it. This isn't a feed. It's a behavioral lab. And you're not the audience. You're the subject. The techniques Chase Hughes exposes aren't theory anymore. They're active systems shaping what you see, what you believe, and who you become. And once you've been rewired, the worst part is, you won't even notice. So, what are your views on this? Let us know in the comments below.
Attention, Canadians. Do you feel disconnected from our current political system? This could be our last chance to take a real legal stand for our rights. It's time to shift the political power to its rightful owners, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada. Dive into our history, understand the need for change, and embark on the quest for true democracy. Are you concerned about our nation's commitment to human rights and self-governance? The power shift to freedom aligns with vital treaties and international laws enabling us to claim our rightful place as collective head of state. We advocate legally replacing the Crown, King Charles III, and our partocracy system with a true democracy, the peoples as the true collective head of state with veto power over our governance, to ensure your voice counts more than party interests. When our national collective civil and political rights are respected, your influence on policies will be direct and impactful. Join us on this noble struggle to make every Canadian and Indigenous peoples a meaningful participant in our future as collective head of state, which was legally owed and kept from us since the patriation of our Constitution, an official decolonization from the United Kingdom of 1982. It's time to correct the past of our government's lies and omissions to the people of our great country before it is too late. People 15 years old and over can sign our Canadian People's Referendum at canadianreferendum.ca and unite for our rights as the collective head of state in our Constitution. Together, we can be the example in reshaping Canada's future, not just for us, but for all peoples worldwide, once and for all. Are you ready to be part of this transformative movement? Join the Power Shift to Freedom movement by the Canadian People's Union and be part of a bold vision for Canada's future. Visit thecpu.ca for more details. Embrace and face the change required on your part to shape our future.